Discover the incredible farmer who changed lives forever without a single word. An amazing journey. In the heart of America lies Willow Creek, a quaint village where kindness blooms like wildflowers. At the center of it all is Jack Thompson, a humble farmer whose life reflects raw resilience and unyielding love. At 50, he is not just a man of the earth, he is a beacon of hope, quiet strength radiating from his very being. With each sunrise, Jack toils the land, his hands thick with the soil that has nurtured his family for generations. But as the seasons change, so has the landscape of Willow Creek. Crops fail, jobs vanish, and hope simmers dimly, flickering like a candle in the wind. Yet, it's not just his labor that sets Jack apart, it's the heart behind it. He shares his harvests, often sneaking bags of fresh veggies to families struggling to put food on the table. But his generosity stirs murmurings of discontent among those who can't keep pace with his giving spirit. At community gatherings, whispers curl around him, a sharp reminder of the gap between their tribulations and his traded blessings. But when a fierce storm rolls in, uprooting lives and fields alike, despair blankets Willow Creek. Jack feels the weight of his neighbor's pain as if it were his own. In the aftermath, he steps forward, head high, ready to extend a helping hand. But instead of gratitude, he finds suspicion, glaring eyes questioning his intentions, as if his kindness had become a facade. During a tense community meeting, frustration hangs thick in the air. Voices rise like the winds outside, accusations dangled on the tips of tongues. Who is really in need? Someone snaps, the atmosphere a powder keg ready to explode. Jack stands at the back, steady, just breathing, a lighthouse amidst the storm. He watches as friendships crack and shared history dissolves into bitter currents running between them. As the tensions peak, Jack's heart splinters. He knows the hurt beneath the anger, how easy it is for misunderstandings to breed contempt. Without a word, he steps forward, gathering the discarded crops that lie by the wayside, forgotten treasures from the storm. The room stills. Confused faces turn toward him as he kneels in the flickering overhead light, hands sifting through the earth, the very soil that connects them all. Every potato, every carrot is a lifeline of nourishment, a symbol of his unwavering belief in their unity. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the townsfolk watch, the silence wraps around them like a warm blanket, momentarily softening the tension. Jack's quiet strength washes over the room, stirring something deep within, the flicker of understanding, perhaps a glimmer of hope. They remember the man they once knew, the one who taught them to stand together in adversity, but as Jack rises, doubt hangs heavily in the air. Can mistrust born from hardship truly be washed away by a shared meal from a neighbor's hands? The storm clouds may have passed, but will they rise to the occasion? Hope swells as he reaches out, but lingering fears still tremble on the edges of every heart, leaving them wondering, will they unite or fracture further under pressure? The wind whispers secrets unknown, and the true test of their bond is yet to unfold. Jack stood in the center of the room, the dim light casting shadows over the faces turned his way. The silence lingered, thick with hesitation. He felt the weight of their stares, like a heavy winter blanket, suffocating yet familiar. He took a breath, steadying himself. Each breath was a reminder of why he was here, not for recognition, not even for thanks, but for them. Let us share a meal, he finally spoke, his voice low but firm. Let us gather what we have left and make something together. A simple offer, yet it hung in the air like a spark ready to ignite. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded, while others squinted with skepticism. What do you mean? Clara, a resident known for her sharp tongue, challenged from the back. You give. We take. That is how this has always been, hasn't it? Jack felt a flicker of frustration. It was true, he had given so much. But what was giving without community? What was kindness if it didn't connect them all? He shifted his weight, stepping from the shadows into the faint glow. It's not just about what we receive. It's about how we come together in this. We may have less now, but we also have each other. Let us celebrate what we can share. The room stirred. A few faces softened, reflecting the hunger for connection beneath the surface of fear and doubt. Jack's heart raced. This could be the moment. Could they break free of their heavy burdens by sharing their pain and their hopes? Slowly, a few people stood up. Emily, with tears glimmering in her eyes, walked to Jack and offered the last bits of her tomatoes. I can't do the work anymore, but I can still contribute, she said, her voice barely a whisper. Then, in small increments, others followed. Joe, an older farmer with a weathered face, brought forward some potatoes. Another woman provided carrots and beans. Each item added to a small collection on the table they had once used for meetings. Not knowing how significant it was going to become, Jack moved to the front, arranging the mismatched vegetables, his heart swelling with hope. Let us cook together. Let us honor the land that still feeds us, even in these tough times. The warmth began to spread, even through doubts. As they prepared the food, voices lifted, laughter began to peek through the clouds of despair. Jack watched, feeling the rhythm of old friendships start to rekindle, the barrier of mistrust beginning to crumble around the edges. Each slice of a carrot, each stir of a pot felt like a pledge, one that promised unity, even amid uncertainty, but just when the atmosphere began to lighten, a shadow appeared by the door. It was Mike, the town's mayor, and his frown seemed at odds with the joy blooming inside the hall. What's happening here? He barked, eyes narrowing, trying to gauge the scene before him. Unease rippled back through the crowd. Would this be yet another obstacle, another moment to shatter their fragile bond? Jack's stomach twisted. They had taken a step forward, but could it withstand the scrutiny of old wounds? Faces turned to Jack, uncertainty brewing once again. Would they hold their ground, or would they retreat back into isolation? The answer felt elusive, just beyond reach, leaving them all poised on the edge of a knife. What would happen next? Would they rise together or fall apart yet again? Jack's heart raced as he met Mike's piercing gaze. The room had been filled with hope, but now it felt as though a cloud had cast a shadow over their brief moment of unity. What had started as a flicker of warmth turned chillier, cutting through the laughter that had just begun to fill the air. Mike, Jack said, trying to keep his voice steady, we're just here to share a meal, to come together as a community. He gestured at the fresh produce on the table, a humble yet vibrant testament to their effort. We have each other, and maybe just maybe, we can rebuild. The mayor crossed his arms, skepticism etched on his face. You think a meal will fix everything? What about the broken promises? What about the way things used to be? His tone was harsh, and doubt seeped back into the group, palpable and suffocating. Jack clenched his fists at his sides, feeling the sting of defeat wash over him. He wanted to scream that this was not about fixing everything, it was about taking the first step forward. The community's wounds ran deep, and Mike represented the fears they all held, the fears of losing even more if they dared to hope. I'm tired of surviving, Clara finally spoke up, her voice trembling but firm. We are tired of just making it. This is something we need. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears that echoed the sentiments shared among the others. Parked in that charged atmosphere, Jack felt the tide shift. The community wasn't just resigned to their fate, they were ready for something more. It stirred something deep within him, urging him to push back against Mike's weighty skepticism. I know it won't be a magic fix, he said, voice rising with determination. But this helps, it really does. We're not just feeding our stomachs, we're trying to heal our hearts. The mayor paused, his expression softening almost imperceptibly, but it was there. Jack seized the moment. Join us, Mike. You might find that something good comes from this. We need all hands on deck, and this town belongs to everyone. Let us find our way back together, starting here. A flicker of doubt crossed Mike's face, but a few people began to murmur their support. It felt like magic, the hope that had appeared again in the room like a gentle breeze pushing against dark clouds. Jack glanced around, seeing the determination in Emily's eyes, the cautious hope in Joe's nod. They were looking to him again, as though he had become a beacon among them, not for his strength but for his willingness to try. It caught him off guard. Perhaps it wasn't just about gathering produce but about gathering hearts and souls, piecing them back together like a patchwork quilt that reminded them of warmer days. Just then, Mike stepped cautiously toward the table. He placed a basket containing some of his finest fruits, the kind he'd been saving for a town hall event. "Maybe I can contribute after all," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone. Applause erupted spontaneously. The tightness in Jack's chest began to ease. Yet as joy spread through the room, an unsettling thought flickered. Was Mike genuinely turning over a new leaf, or was this a mere facade? As they began cooking together, laughter and chatter returned, yet Jack felt a nagging doubt ripple beneath the surface. What would happen when the meal ended, and the reality of their struggles returned? Would the cracks reappear as quickly as they had begun to heal? As they stirred the pot, a new tension loomed above them, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of something far greater and perhaps far more complicated. Could they truly come together, or would it all come crashing down once again when the night's shadows finally closed in? The fragrant aroma of cooking vegetables mingled with the sweet scent of freshly cut fruit. Jack inhaled deeply, seeking solace in the small moments of joy they were creating together. The laughter was infectious, and for a fleeting moment, he felt the weight of despair lift. But behind that laughter lurked uncertainty. "What's next, Jack?" Emily asked, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her eyes shining. "If this works out, what do we do tomorrow?" "Good question." Jack hadn't thought that far ahead. They'd made progress tonight, but could it last? "One step at a time," he said, clutching the edge of the table. "Let us focus on the meal. This moment is ours. Let's hold on to it." Not everyone was convinced. A glimmer of worry darted across Clara's face. What if Mike goes back on his word? What if all this effort is for nothing? The tightness in her throat mirrored the anxiety circling the group, threatening to pull them back into the darkness. Jack glanced at Mike, who was quietly slicing fruit with remarkable focus. The mayor looked absorbed in his task, as if each cut was a meditation to calm his turbulent thoughts. There was no way to know if he was truly invested in this moment or just playing a role. Jack knew he had to believe in something bigger, so he offered a reassuring smile to Clara. "Let us just be present tonight. We deserve this." Just then, the door swung open, and a gust of cold air swept through the room. Jack turned to see a few familiar faces stepping inside, hesitant but curious. It was a handful of residents who had distanced themselves from the community gatherings, wary and scattered like leaves in a brisk wind. Seeing them added more weight to Jack's heart. "Hey, we didn't know if you all were gathering tonight," one of them muttered, shuffling closer and eyeing the bounty on the table. Can we join?" Jack's heart soared for a moment. "Absolutely. Grab a plate and sit." He motioned for them to join, witnessing the flicker of hope brightening their faces in response. Cautious laughter filled the space again as they took their places, each piecing life together, shoulder to shoulder in that modest kitchen. For Jack, it was a small but significant triumph, one that hinted at real transformation. "I didn't think I could ever enjoy a meal with everyone again," said Kevin, the quietest of the newcomers, voice thick with emotion. It was the kind of honesty that melted barriers in an instant. "Neither did we," Emily replied, placing a friendly hand on his shoulder. "But we're here, and we can build from here, right?" But before answers could be found, the air was pierced by a loud crash from the other room, causing a collective gasp to echo around the group. Jack's stomach dropped. Mike, whose expression had been softening under the cheerful camaraderie, now wore a deeply troubled frown. "I should check that out," Mike said, moving toward the source of the ruckus. "Stay here." "Wait, Mike." Jack called, pushing through the gathering crowd. Fear flickered between them. What if the community chaos returned to disrupt their fragile moment? Would this be the breaking point? As Mike opened the door, the flickering bulbs overhead illuminated the chaotic scene where a few children and some elderly were clamoring for attention, their laughter eerily juxtaposed against the spilled food around them. "Get it together!" Mike shouted reflexively. But why was he back in that role again? Jack's heart sank as he wondered if they would ever escape the cycle of doubt and fear. In that moment, Clara stepped forward, her voice steady. "They're just kids." She approached the messy group, kneeling to engage them directly. "Let us clean up together." Jack watched as Clara's words turned chaos into cooperation. Slowly, it became clear that the community was wielding its power to shift toward hope, not just at the table, but in the messy realities of their lives. What was happening was bigger than any single meal. But as laughter grew again around the mess, Jack couldn't shake the tension in his chest. Would this camaraderie endure beyond this night? In that moment of uncertainty, he turned his gaze to Mike, who stood frozen at the door, confusion etched all over his face. Could he open himself up enough to change things for good? As the party began to reclaim their joy, Jack found himself grappling with that same nagging question. Would this fragile magic hold, or would all they had built come crashing down when he least expected it? Jack's heart was still racing as he watched the kids help Clara with the cleanup. The tension began to muddle with something warmer, the cool, drifting fear being replaced by a sense of community. The laughter bubbled up again, pushing through the cracks of uncertainty. But that nagging question didn't leave him. Would the night's joy last? Mike hesitated. His eyes darted between the chaos and Clara's soft encouragement. For a moment, Jack saw the flicker of a decision brewing within him, the possibility of stepping away from his mayor persona and just being a part of it all. But the shadow of the past hung heavy, old wounds were hard to heal. "What is going on here?" Mike finally asked, his voice much softer now. It was almost a question, and Jack felt his breath catch. Was Mike truly ready to embrace this? To lead in a way that went beyond authority and into encouragement? Clara laughed, the sound carefree, vibrant. "Just a little snack accident. Nothing we can't handle together." As she spoke, she cradled a child who stumbled over a half-empty bowl. The little boy giggled, enjoying the attention more than the mess. Jack couldn't help but smile. Maybe this was how communities were meant to come together, through silliness, through mashed potatoes and laughter. He watched as more residents joined in, their initial reluctance waning. It was the kind of spirit that reminded him of the potlucks of his childhood, where food was a language that everyone understood. "Here, let me help." Emily jumped in, grabbing napkins and towels. Soon, everyone was working side by side, hands moving in a rhythm that felt right, but in the back of his mind, Jack couldn't shake the heavy cloak of reality that whispered to him if this worked, they might still face what lay ahead. The impending challenges of trust, of fear, and of Mike's leadership loomed. Could they really unite? As laughter filled the kitchen again, Jack found himself next to Mike, who was tentatively brushing chip crumbs from a counter. "You all right?" Jack asked, breaking through the contrasts of the evening. Mike sighed, a resigned chuckle escaping him. "I forget sometimes that these moments matter more than the plans we set." A tension in his shoulders eased slightly. Jack saw a flicker of the real Mike behind the mayor facade, someone who wanted to be seen, to be included. "Every meal has its mess," Jack replied, his voice steady with a warmth he hadn't felt in ages. "And every community has its chaos." Mike nodded. "I guess it's time I embraced both, huh?" As their initial awkwardness began to dissolve, they were interrupted by a chorus of cheerful voices coming from the other side of the table. "Look! We made a fort!" squealed one of the kids, proudly standing among the remnants of the food once more as if to claim their territory. Jack's heart swelled. This was what they were fighting for, the ability to enjoy each other's company, to share in the imperfections of life. To feel whole again. But just when he thought the night might settle into a comfortable rhythm, he saw Clara pause, the laughter around her fading into muffled whispers. She glanced over at Mike, uncertainty flickering in her eyes. The underlying tension had not disappeared after all. "Mike, about our plan," she began, but Jack felt the air thicken once more. Would they have the courage to face the complicated issues ahead? As Clara's words lingered, Jack's heart raced again. Was this where everything could shift for the better? Or were they on the brink of another confrontation? He leaned in closer, tension coiling tightly in his gut. What was going to happen next? Clara's voice hung in the air, the anticipation thick enough to cut with a knife. Everyone seemed to hold their breath. Jack glanced at Mike, who was now rigid, the smile fading from his face. The warmth of the moment faded like a wilting flower, replaced by the sharp edges of reality. "Clara, maybe we should," Mike started, but the words stumbled, unsure. The children around them continued to giggle, blissfully unaware of the weight that had suddenly settled upon their little fort. Jack stepped forward, trying to break the tension. "What plan are we talking about?" His question was met with wary eyes, and he regretted interrupting the moment. It felt like an unspoken code had been broken, as if they had stumbled into a room where they didn't belong. "There's been some talk about what comes next for our community. After tonight." Clara's words were cautious, as if each one was a fragile glass orb she was trying to keep from shattering. "We have to be ready for the challenges ahead. Things won't be easy." A heavy silence followed. It was hard to ignore what loomed on the horizon. Doubts, resentment, and uncertainty were uninvited guests at their joyous gathering. Mike's expression hardened as he processed Clara's words. "What challenges?" His voice grew firm, echoing a concern that wasn't just for himself but for everyone present. "We have spent tonight coming together, we can't ruin it with worry. Let us focus on what we've built here." "Mike, I know it sounds bleak," Clara said softly, placing a hand on his arm. "But we have to prepare. We can't pretend everything's fine when it's not." Jack's heart felt heavy as he watched the two of them. He wanted to believe that this unity they were experiencing could hold up against whatever was thrown their way, but doubt gnawed at him. "Maybe this is the beginning we need," Jack interjected, feeling that sense of urgency bubble within him. "Tonight, we've seen that we're stronger together. Maybe we can face anything, if we hold on to what we've got." Emily nodded enthusiastically, joining in. "Exactly. We were all here today, willing to pitch in and help. That's worth something, right?" The air crackled with mixed energy, a blend of hope intertwined with fear. It was an awkward dance of conflicting emotions, but Jack sensed it was also a step towards something bigger. But as the laughter began to trickle back, Jack saw trouble brewing just below the surface. Clara's eyes flickered with determination but also uncertainty. Could she, Mike, and the rest of them find a way to harmonize those feelings? A child's laughter rang out, breaking the pensive air momentarily, but it couldn't mask the underlying issues. The messy reality of life loomed, and Jack felt its weight once more. "Let us finish what we started here," Jack said, his voice more confident than he felt. "Let us keep this spirit alive." Everyone turned their attention back, some kids still playing, others beginning to quiet down. Jack knew they needed to seize this moment. If they could rally around each other tonight, perhaps they could transform this fragile connection into something lasting. As the room began to pulse with renewed energy, Clara and Mike exchanged a long glance. Whatever understanding they were reaching across the gap between them, Jack felt it was the heartbeat of progress. But just as Jack basked momentarily in the warmth of their laughter, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Glass shattered, and two terrified kids dashed into the room, breathless and wide-eyed. Jack's heart plummeted, anxiety gripping him again. What now? The night felt like a roller coaster, with emotions swinging wildly from joy to dread. "Is everyone okay?" he called out, nerves prickling his skin. As the chaos resumed, Jack exchanged looks with Mike and Clara. A silent understanding passed between them, a question that trembled in the air. Were they strong enough for the ride ahead? Behind the laughter and cries was an undeniable truth: more challenges awaited. The question lingered in the air, echoing between the chaos of shattered glass and wild laughter. How would they find the strength to keep this journey alive? The room fell into a hushed quiet as the echo of the crash faded. Clara was the first to break the silence, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. "Let's check it out," she said, gripping Mike's hand tightly, a silent truce forming in their shared worry. Jack nodded, stepping toward the kitchen door, the laughter from the children fading to an anxious murmur. He could feel the tension coiling in the air, thick enough to cut. They passed through the threshold together, stepping into the aftermath of confusion. The sight that greeted them was chaotic. The table was overturned, utensils scattered like fallen soldiers, while a glass pitcher sat shattered on the floor, glistening shards catching the light like tiny stars. Jack's eyes quickly searched for the two kids who had run in, worry prickling his skin. "Hey, are you guys okay?" Jack knelt, his voice gentle, as he focused on a little girl clutching her brother's arm. Both had wide, fearful eyes but seemed relatively unharmed. Relief washed over him like a gentle wave. "We were just trying to grab some juice," the boy stammered, pointing shakily at the mess. It slipped. Clara's heart softened at the sight, and she crouched down to their level. "It's all right. Accidents happen. You both aren't hurt, right?" Their small nods brought a flicker of calm. Mike stepped closer, his demeanor shifting as he took in the scene. "Let's all work together to clean this up, okay? We want to make sure the kitchen is safe for everyone." The children looked at one another, their faces still pinched with worry. It was a delicate moment, one that could easily tip either way. But then the little girl gave a small smile, and soon her brother joined her. "Yeah. We can help." As the kids began to gather the smaller pieces, a collective sigh of relief washed through Jack. "All right, team," he encouraged, "I'll take the biggest pieces. Clara, can you guide them?" The energy shifted again, bonds reinforcing with each shared task, a united front against the chaos. They worked in an oddly joyous rhythm, the laughter from the living room becoming more inviting. With every piece they picked up, something shifted, pressure eased and fears began to fade. It felt less like a burden and more like a promise, as if they were all investing in a brighter future. Once the mess was cleared away, Jack stood, brushing off his hands and realizing for the first time how much weight had lifted from his shoulders. The children beamed up at him, their triumph brightening the dim kitchen lights. Clara joined him, exiting the space with a sparkle of hope in her eyes. "See," she said softly, as they moved back to the main room. "Together, we can do more than we think." As they stepped back into the living room, the laughter felt richer, warmer. For a brief moment, all worries were drowned out by the joy of shared experiences and broken barriers. Yet, as they stood amidst the cheerful clamor, Jack was still left with the feeling that this was just the beginning, a small fracture in the surface of deeper challenges yet to come. But as Clara caught his eye, her brow momentarily creasing in worry, he couldn't shake the unease lingering in his chest. What if, he thought, tonight is just a bandage over something more troubling? Just then, a phone buzzed on the side table, grabbing everyone's attention. Mike picked it up, his face draining of color as he read something on the screen, his eyes widening in disbelief. "What is it?" Clara asked, her pulse quickening. With a shaky breath, Mike turned to face them, the night abruptly shifting under their feet. "We've got a problem. There's news about the farm." The room fell silent again. All shared laughter evaporated. Jack's heart began to race. Whatever lay ahead, he knew it would change everything. Tension hung in the air like a heavy fog. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he exchanged concerned glances with Clara and Mike. The warmth from the lively living room suddenly felt cold and distant. "What about the farm?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Mike looked at them, his expression grave. "The local government just announced they're planning to sell off the land. They want to break it up for new development." Clara's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with disbelief. "But that land has been in your family for generations. You can't just—" "It's not just about my family," Mike interrupted, cutting through the shock. It's about the community. That farm provides fresh produce, jobs, it's a part of who we are. Jack felt the weight of those words settle on his shoulders. It wasn't just Mike's family legacy at stake, it was everything the town had built around it. The laughter they had just heard felt like a fading echo of a home that might be lost. "What do we do?" Clara asked, her voice trembling with urgency. Mike took a deep breath, squaring his shoulders. "We fight for it. We need to gather support. Show them how much it means to all of us." Jack's mind raced. But how? What can we really do against a government plan? People care, Mike insisted. If we can rally the community, organize a meeting, start a petition, maybe even a rally, bring everyone together. Clara's eyes steeled with determination. "We can do this. We've already seen how strong we are when we work together." Jack watched the fire in Clara's voice ignite the same spirit in him. This was their home. The farm wasn't just land, it was their history, their future, and without it, everything felt uncertain. "We need to act fast," Mike urged. "They'll have a public hearing soon. We don't have much time." Jack felt a newfound energy surge through him, shifting his apprehension into purpose. "Let us do it. We'll spread the word. I can talk to my neighbors. And I can reach out to the parents at school," Clara added, her voice lifting. "Everyone deserves to know what's happening." The children, sensing the gravity of the moment, peered up at the adults. "Can we help?" the little boy asked, eyes shining with eagerness. Mike smiled, the tension easing from his shoulders. "Of course you can. We'll need all the hands we can get." As they began to strategize, Jack felt a swell of hope. Each idea exchanged held the promise of unity. They were ready to fight for something much greater than themselves. Suddenly, another buzz from Mike's phone interrupted their planning. With a frown deepening on his face, he glanced at the screen again, the color draining from his cheeks. "What is it?" Clara asked again, her concern mounting. It's a message from someone on the council. They're not just selling the farm," Mike said, voice trembling. "They're also planning to shut down the community center." A wave of despair washed over them. The community center was the heart of their town, a place of gathering, connection, and family. Jack's heart raced again, but this time it was mixed with fury. "No. That's not happening. We need to take a stand. Tonight," Clara said, her voice steady, "we're planning. Tomorrow, we'll make sure everyone knows what's at stake." As they rallied together, a powerful sense of determination filled the air. Each of them ready to fight for what mattered most, but a nagging thought lingered in Jack's mind. What if this fight cost them even more than they anticipated? Would they be ready for the battles ahead? With that sense of dread shadowing their resolve, Jack clenched his fists, ready to face whatever was coming. "Let us do this," he declared, "before it's too late." The next morning came too soon, the rising sun illuminating the day with a harsh brilliance. Jack awoke with urgency churning in his stomach. The weight of their mission hung over him like thick molasses. He had never been one to make waves, but this time was different. He threw on some old jeans and a faded t-shirt, the fabric reminding him of summers spent working on the farm with Mike's family. It was a part of him. Clara was already at the kitchen table, a stack of papers strewn before her. "I've started a petition," she said, unable to hide the determination in her voice. "We need a clear point of action to show the council how many people care about the farm and the center." As she spoke, her eyes sparkled with that same fire Jack remembered from the night before. "Have you heard from Mike?" Jack asked, trying to mask the worry creeping up his spine. Clara shook her head, biting her lip. "Not since last night. I'm sure he's busy. But we need everyone. The sooner we spread the word, the better." As they printed copies of the petition, Jack's mind raced with names, neighbors, townspeople, parents from the school he would need to contact. As he set out on his bike, the cool air hit his face, sharpening his focus. Each pedal stroke felt like a promise, an offering of hope. Jack found his neighbor, Mr. Thompson, in his yard, pruning a rose bush. "Hey, Mr. Thompson. You got a minute?" he called out, hopping off his bike. The old man wiped his brow and nodded. "What's on your mind, Jack? You hear about the farm? They're planning to sell it and shut down the community center." Jack's heart raced as he spoke. "We need your help to stop it." Mr. Thompson's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "What? That place holds so much history. We can't let that happen." Jack felt a weight lift. "Exactly. Clara started a petition. If we can gather enough signatures, maybe the council will listen." "Count me in," Mr. Thompson replied firmly. "You can always count on me for a fight like this." Word spread quickly throughout the neighborhood. Jack visited several families, talking passionately about the farm, the community center, and what losing them would mean for their town. Responses ranged from surprise to anger, but nearly everyone signed the petition. As the day passed, Jack felt the momentum building, a sense of unity blossoming among them. He returned home to find Clara and Mike poring over more documents, meeting details, community comments, and potential strategies. The fire that had faded the night before was back. "We gathered over 50 signatures in just one day," Jack said, practically bursting with excitement. "We need more," Mike said, his brows furrowed in thought. "It's just not enough yet." As they continued to strategize, a thought gnawed at Jack again. What if it doesn't work? What if they have already made their decision? Clara looked at him, her eyes fierce. "But we owe it to ourselves to try. We can't just sit back and let them take everything away." Feeling the heat of their determination, Jack pushed aside his doubts. They were fighting for more than just land, they were fighting for their community, their memories, and their future. Just as they were wrapping up plans for the evening rally, Mike's phone buzzed again, a council meeting reminder. The urgency mounted. "They're going to hear our voices soon," Mike said, resolve etched on his face. A moment of silence fell over the room. Would they be strong enough? Had they gathered enough support? The future of their town hung in the balance, and Jack knew they had to stand together, prepared for whatever storm was brewing. As they stepped outside, ready to face the gathering crowd, Jack felt a surge of hope. But hidden beneath that hope was the unsettling question: what if their voices weren't enough this time? Tomorrow could change everything, but would it be for better or worse? The sun hung low over Willow Creek, bathing the town in a warm golden hue, but Jack felt a chill creeping down his spine. The air buzzed with anticipation. The day they had been preparing for had finally arrived. He stood outside the community center, heart racing, hands sweaty, but feeling the weight of their collective resolve behind him. As townsfolk began to gather, conversations ignited with purpose. Clara was speaking passionately, rallying the newcomers to the cause like a firestarter. Jack glanced back at the old community center, the weight of years, memories, and laughter echoing through its walls. Could they really fight to save it? "Jack!" Clara waved him over. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the growing crowd. "People are here to fight for our home." He felt a swell of pride as he watched familiar faces, neighbors, friends, even families who had kept their distance. United, they formed an unbreakable wall of determination. "We could really do this, couldn't we?" he murmured, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Of course we can. Tonight is just a starting point," Clara insisted, her eyes sparkling with hope and fire. As the clock struck 6, Mike stepped up to the makeshift podium, his voice clear and steady. "Tonight, we're not just fighting for land or buildings," he said. "We're fighting for the essence of who we are as a community. Together, we will make them listen." The crowd erupted in cheers, each clap echoing their shared resolve, but as they rallied, Jack's heart pounded with a deeper fear. What if this unity crumbled when faced with insurmountable odds? What if people returned to their old disagreements once the excitement fizzled? He shook the thought away, grounding himself in the moment, in the here and now. The petitions were passed around, hands reaching for clipboards, eager signers igniting pockets of hope. Jack stood beside Clara, watching people come forward, determined to make their voices count. The fire of connection swept through him as each name filled the pages. This was their bond, their fight, they were stronger together. Jack. A voice broke through his thoughts. It was Emily, her face flushed. I heard from Mr. Thompson. He's backing us up with local farmers. If we really come together, it's not just us, there's a whole movement starting. Are you serious? Jack felt a rush of exhilaration. The news raised spirits even higher, laughter resurfacing amidst the growing tension of anticipation. Let us share that tonight. As twilight draped its blanket over them, they prepared to rally everyone for one final push. This is our moment, Jack proclaimed, his emotion spilling into the words. Tonight, let the council hear our cries. Let us fill every corner with our voices. The crowd united like a wave, energized and spirited, surging toward the council meeting. They marched together, hands linked, laughter bubbling up, and tears of joy starting to be wiped away. Jack smiled at the fragile threads connecting them, weaving a tapestry of resilience and hope. When they reached the community hall, standing outside those imposing walls felt like crossing a threshold into something new. Jack led the way up the stairs, feeling Clara next to him, her courage blending with his uncertainty. He turned to face the crowd. No matter what happens in there, he called, voice steady, know that we're already victorious in spirit. Whatever comes next, we stand together. The applause crashed over him like a wave. Stepping inside, the atmosphere shifted dangerously sharp. The council sat with their stony expressions, already prepared for an opposition with a formidable presence. But Jack's heart thumped wildly, filled with newfound courage. As names called out like a chorus of familiar voices, Mike joined the tide of shared stories, the struggles, memories, laughter long lost to fear. It swelled and filled the room, weaving a cohesive narrative that spoke of tradition, of family, of resilience. The room buzzed with emotion. Jack saw fear ebbing away from familiar faces, transforming into strength. Clara stepped up, voice unwavering, we deserve to be heard. This is our home. The echoing applause met her words with fervor. Finally, it was Jack's turn. He stepped forward, nerves prickling as he felt the weight of every gaze upon him. He took a deep breath. Every meal shared, every laugh, every tear shed within this community center has woven our lives together. You cannot break our bond. His voice cracked, emotion spilling freely. And these lands have provided for generations. They hold our stories. They are us. He urged, the pulse of connection surging through the hall. If you can't see that now while we stand before you together, then we must come back stronger. We'll keep fighting for what's right. Silence fell like a blanket, the weight of their words sinking into the hearts gathered around. As the meeting continued, the council members exchanged glances, uncertainty flickering behind their hardened masks. Maybe, just maybe, they would understand. Behind the formalities, perhaps there was a shared human yearning for community, connection, and belonging, and at that moment, something shifted. Jack felt the tide, the whisper of possibility embracing him. Maybe tonight was the first step toward more than just safety for their home. Perhaps it was the dawn of a new harmony. As the meeting drew to a close, the council's faces wore expressions that hinted at understanding. We will reconsider before proceeding, one of them announced, a flicker of hope igniting the air. The crowd erupted into joyous chants, tears of happiness spilling onto cheeks. Jack's heart soared. They had opened a doorway. Jack looked around, soaking in the triumphant energy, the glowing faces of his friends, his family. Clara caught his gaze and flashed a radiant smile. For the first time, perhaps in his life, Jack felt something pivotal shift. This was unity. It ripped through fears, broke barriers, painted a path forward. Together, they were no longer whispers of hope, they were a thunderous roar echoing across Willow Creek. They had found their voices, their strength fighting not just for land, but for everything it meant to be a community. And as they stepped outside, basking in the glow of their hard-won victory, Jack realized this was just the beginning. Now, the time had come for them to celebrate their newfound bond. Together, they would make sure that Willow Creek would thrive, and that its heart, its community center and all its stories would forever remain their beacon of hope. So what are you waiting for? This is your moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories that unite us all. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because every click brings us closer together. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this powerful ending. Let us keep the conversation going, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation and join us on this incredible journey. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the love.